Are you interested in purchasing a replica diecast similar to the one that Todd Kidd used to win this year's Ajax 200, the one that defending champion Cameron Atwood used to win the first night race at Disney, the one that Todd Kidd used to win his 10th milestone Ajax Cup victory at Belltown, or the one that Laquon Scransen used to win under the lights in the Ajax All-Star race? Well, if you are, you're in luck. Head on over to Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales and use coupon code ASCA on any orders $20 or more to acquire free shipping at checkout.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. Yes, we're back weekly. Fortunately, no, it is not featuring Nick Douglas. Yet Nick is a busy man, obviously the play-by-play commentator for all the ADRA TV races on the ASCA side of things. So he had something come up. He couldn't be here, but I am your host, Charles Fallon, back in here to preview um, the biggest week in the ASCA. Obviously, we got the treatmypc.com 150. We got the 14th annual Windows 300 featuring the most competitive field in history. And we're going to go over everything that happened in the wild All-Star race last Saturday night. So, before we get into it, without further ado, let's shout out the ASCA's premier partners, Rowdy Energy, fantastic partner of the sport. You gotta try their energy drinks if you haven't. I mean, you are really missing out. And also, Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales. You got to also give them a shot as well, because if you do, you want to buy any replica diecasts that have won races in the sport this season, well, you got to do well. I mean, you obviously have options, but I would recommend doing it there because you can get free shipping on any orders $20 and more with coupon code ASCA at checkout. So once again, thanks to the sports premier partners and the podcast premier partners, Rowdy Energy and Circle B Diecast. So let's talk about the week that was the All-Star race. And I think there's two words that you need to say referring to the All-Star race. Laquon Scransen. Wow. I mean, what a week it was for him. And I know this topic has been talked to death, but I mean, for good reason. When have we ever seen a driver go from victory lane on Saturday to behind bars on Monday, bail themselves out of jail on Tuesday, hop in a car, qualify third on Friday, and then on the next Saturday night, go out and dominate the All Star race against the best of the best to become the youngest All Star race winner in history at just the age of 21. I mean, like, this kid is ridiculous, man. And I was just talking about, how disappointed I was in him, obviously after his arrest. And this is why. Because the talent is there. This kid is insanely talented behind the wheel. I like seriously. And especially you have to consider once again, he is in Dexter Andrews Motorsports equipment and he's holding off, the defending champion. Um, Held off Greg Healy a bit earlier. Shane Park, another rising star. Bryn Renard, former Windows 300 winner. Holding all these guys off. Held off Chris Barrymore as well, the defending winner of this race. Held off all those guys throughout the night. And, like, he's a Dexter Andrews Motorsports equipment. His teammate, again, I think finished like 10th or something in the open. He was irrelevant the entire race. While Scransen goes out and dominates the main event. I mean, like, it's insane what he's doing right now. It really is. Um, you know, like, that's why I'm sure the sponsors had a tough time dropping him after the incident because you got to do a cost benefit analysis. Like, do you really want to drop a transcendent talent like this that can go out and win you races any given week? Obviously, there's going to be there's going to be a breaking point where it has to happen eventually if he continues to go back and forth to jail. But hopefully he can stay out of trouble from here on out, because if he does, I mean, the sky is the limit for his ASCA career. It's only just getting started. He's in his third year. He's already got 3 cup wins. He's got a Craftsman championship. He now has an all-star race victory. The sky really is the limit for Scransen. And especially now that Dexter Andrews Motorsports has committed to giving him a car that can compete with the best of the best. They've given him the equipment. I'm sure it's not as good as, like in our Kiwi Birds Racing or Roddy Woods Motorsports equipment, but it's championship competitive equipment basically that he can run up front week in and week out and show off his talents like we all know that he has. And so that's huge. It's huge, for Scransen, just to kind of put a cap on all the doubters that said, "Oh, this guy should be fired after this." And I mean, you do have a point, but it's hard to fire a guy when he has this much talent. If it was Alex Dennis getting arrested, he would have been fired the first time he got arrested. But when you have a driver that is just this good, you can't pull the plug like that. You're gonna have you're gonna give him a much longer leash than you would a lot of other drivers in the sport, because I don't think there's any. In fact, there hasn't been any other driver in this sport besides maybe a Randall Woods that was winning this much at such a young age. So, like I said, Laquon, the sky is the limit if he can stay out of trouble, stay on the track, stay from being behind bars. The sky is the limit for him. So, incredible job for him to block out all the noise, all the controversy, and really lay him on him in the All Star race. Just the second driver to sweep the stages. And to be honest, he probably shouldn't have swept the stages in this race. Let's be real, because of what happened on lap 9 of stage 2 between former teammates Greg Healy and Shane Park getting together. And this was a shocking moment in the race for most. I know it certainly was for me, because Healy and Park are still really good friends, even though they're not teammates anymore. Obviously, with Park moving to Ronnie Woods Motorsports, but these two are still pretty good friends. And to see them get together like this, in such a violent accident, especially while battling for the lead, and it was Healy was the one that made the mistake. A former All-Star race winner himself in 2020, was previously the youngest before Scransen took that title. Um, Obviously a former champion in 2022. He has been really bad this season, like not good at all. A part of that isn't due to his fault, but part of it is, he's been making mistakes, and this was just another one of those. He's had bad luck, but this is also a mistake on his end. Just drove it in way too deep. I know Park was pinching him down, but you gotta race hard, especially with the invert that was coming up. If you didn't start in the front row, you'd be going to the back, and you'd end up like Chris Barrymore, who had a second place car and ended up finishing like 8th due to the invert. So it's just a racing deal, but it just kind of summarizes the way the season's gone for Greg Healy. Like he can't catch a break this year. Some years it's your year, some years you're the ball, some years you're the bat, and this year, um, Greg Healy's the ball. He's definitely the ball, and we'll see if he's able to bounce back and win those 300. He has won that race before as well in 2022. So it'll be very interesting to see how that one goes. But as for Park, it's another tough break for him as well. He's been the opposite. He's having a breakout season currently, second in the point standings, qualified in pole position for this race, led some laps early. before Scransen took the lead, but then got the lead back in the pits and was leading here before the accident with Healy, and got a feel for him as well. I think he was the only guy that really could have given Scranton a run for his money, especially if he started on the front row, because his car on the short run was actually really good, and he was able to hold Scranton at bay for the first 8 or 9 laps of the opening stage. Like his car on the short run is pretty good. So it's a shame that we didn't get to see that Park v Scranton battle that we've seen a couple different times this season at both of the road courses. Same we couldn't get to see it again here, but I'm sure we're gonna get to see it many more times to come in the future because these two kids are going to be superstars of the sport throughout the next couple seasons. That's for sure. I mean, yeah, Park is 23, Scranton's only 21. Like these guys are just beginning their cup careers. They got a long ways to go. Um, and a lot of things to accomplish in this sport. A lot more wins ahead of both of them, I would say. So that's it for that. Wrap putting a bow on the All Star race. We see our ninth different winner in 9 years. Looking like we'll probably end up getting our 10th different winner in 10 years, unless, Laquon Scransen has something to say about that. But now we get to previewing all the action for the biggest races of the ASCA campaign for both Craftsman and for Cup. The biggest and longest races of the season. I should also mention, like, this is not your average 200, 100-mile races. These are 150 and 300-mile events. So it's going to be a test of endurance for a lot of these guys, especially the guys making their debuts or the one-off drivers. They're going to have their work cut out for them, but it's a good debut race for, I think, the guys in the Craftsman series to kind of learn, hey, how are things going to work in the big leagues? You're going to find out real quick, especially in such a competitive field like this. So let's get to previewing the 12th annual TreatMyPC.com 150. And we'll first begin with recapping the first 6 races of the 2024 season. And what more is there to recap other than Colin Ward in the number 60? Other than Nick Painter at Belltown, those two cars, those two teams have won 5 of the first 6 races. Ward has 3 wins. And then Atwood and Barrymore scored 2 wins in the number 60. The 60 has also finished inside the top 5 in all 6 races this season. Very well could have won Belltown had Atwood not gotten that pit penalty on the final stop. The winner of the TreatMyPC.com 150 has also gone on to win the title the last 3 years. Coincidentally, this was after Cup drivers were banned from entering this race, entering the 2021 season. So Scranton, Jackson, and Ward all won this race, and obviously went on to go win the title. For Scranton, it was his first win of 2021, and that really sparked the run he went on, 3 wins in 5 races, and his comeback to snatch the points lead away from Sean Wooden and win the championship. For Ross Jackson, it was his second win of the season. Who can forget that incredible final restart he got, splitting it 3 wide middle on that final restart? He laid back and then got Adam Petty Jr. arrow loose and busted out with the race lead, drove off and won the thing. That was his second win of the season. And after a DNF at West Virginia, he would bounce back, score another one at the Stone Yard, and obviously go on to win the title. And then for Colin Ward, this was his third win of the season last year. So, kind of varying degrees of what point in the run they were on. And then Ward obviously didn't win another race the rest of the season. But obviously, he had 3 wins of the first 7 races. That's more than enough to hold you over for a full year. Could we see Ward score his 4th win of the season if that trend were to continue and then go on to win the championship? very well could happen. I don't see how he isn't the favorite for this race. Just considering what he's done, or not just this season, but the past 2 years. I mean, what hasn't this guy won? He's won the Napa Auto Parts 100 twice. Could he win the TreatMyPC.com 150 twice? I mean, that would certainly cement him, I think, as the greatest craftsman regular in history. Not and it wouldn't even be close. Honestly, it's not even close at this point that he is. So, I look at that and man, like, so Ward, I think, is the clear cut favorite. But, don't count out a guy like a Graham Darty, I would say. Darty started outside pole for this race. He made his debut in this race last season at the age of 17. Started outside pole, dropped back to as low as eighth at one point because he was really struggling on the long runs, which is understandable. It was his ASCA debut, and you really, really, really have to manage the tires big time at a track like this. So he burned the tires off the thing, dropped back to as low as eighth. But that final restart gave him some life. He drove all the way back up the field, up to the third spot. And that was where he finished in his debut. And then, of course, his second start a little bit later on in the season, he won pole and won the race. So, Graham Darty, I think certainly he's second in points right now, just three back. I think he's certainly gonna be a factor on Saturday afternoon. I think Marcus Edwards, he's run pretty well here in his couple starts that he's had in this race. I think he's certainly going to be a factor as well. And then, of course, there's the driver that pretty much everyone is talking about that's not named Colin Ward, not named Graham Darty, and not named Marcus Edwards. This guy hasn't even made a start in the top two divisions of the ASCA so far, but everyone is talking about him this weekend, and they're saying, screw Laquon Scransen. Laquon Scransen, who? This guy is going to be the ASCA's next big thing, and that's Tony Del Valle II. I don't know if you heard of this guy, 17 years old from Upper Montclair, New Jersey. The kid, everyone is ranting and raving about him, saying, "Oh my God, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread." Even Jimmy Hood just said that. Jimmy Hood uttered the sliced bread quote. I wrote an article about him. Peep that article if you haven't, to kind of see what I'm talking about here. Obviously his father has had him into racing since he was 3 years old. So this kid has been doing this all his life, training to be racing in the ASCA. They moved to Michigan in his preteen years to help him get noticed by team owners. Eventually, Michael White did take notice, signed him as a 15-year-old, which is unheard of in this sport. I think the last driver to be signed as like a 15, 16-year-old was like Cameron Barrymore. And well, obviously he's been a big stud in the ASCA so far outside of his win. But here's the deal with Del Val. For him, it's gonna be a very interesting debut. Because the expectations for this kid are sky high. Like, obviously, we all acknowledge that Graham Doherty is an incredible prospect. The scouts have a dinged at 5 stars right now, but he did not have this much hubbub about him until after he became, the youngest winner in ASCA history, and of course, the youngest pole sitter in ASCA history as well. Like, if he didn't win that race, I don't think he would have nearly the hype behind him that he has right now, even with him being second in points. If he was still searching for his first career win, I don't think he would have nearly the hype right now that he has behind him. Del Val already has that hype, and he hasn't even stepped foot in a Craftsman or a Cup car yet. So that just lets you know, like, I haven't seen a guy hyped up this much entering the big leagues since, man, this young. entering the big leagues overall, I haven't seen a guy hyped up this much since Devin Smith. Obviously, Devin Smith received a crap ton of media attention. Everyone talking about he is going to be the next short track master, the next Jimmy Hood, the next Randall Woods, the next this, the next that. And here we are about a half decade later, and he's on a 1 year proven deal with Tico Bowden Motorsports. Cameron Barrymore had a lot of those comparisons as well. And here he is 22nd in points, um, currently with Revolution Racing and back marker equipment. For Tony Del Val, you know, the hype surrounding him has been insane. Like, this is the most hype I've seen surrounding a kid this young, a kid that's only a teenager before he's even stepped foot on the track since I would say Randall Woods. And the ironic thing is, Woods, I think, was racing in Craftsman in 2007. That's the year Tony Del Val was born. He was born in 2007 and he's 17 years old. You feel old yet? Because I certainly do. So, like, man, he grew up watching a lot of these events, the 2015 Windows 300 when the modern era began. He was 8 years old when that was taking place. He was 10 years old in 2017, just thinking about that season when Jimmy Hood won his final championship. Like, he's grown up, watching the modern era, and now he finally gets his chance to race in the big leagues. So I'm eagerly waiting to see how he does. Will he be able to live up to the hype? Will he be able to live up to the expectations? And I mean, the expectations are ridiculous, but I just want to see him finish the race. Finish the race. We'll see where he qualifies and where he runs at. But this is the most competitive field in Craftsman history. Just finish the race and we'll talk. Now, obviously, if he runs like 15th, then okay, we're gonna have to turn some heads here. But I would say a top 10 finish is a pretty solid effort for a guy in a field this competitive. And just finish the race, get that 150 miles of experience under your belt. Then he's gonna be back for West Virginia next week. Then he's gonna be back for Disney the week after that. So he's gonna get, some experience, some mileage under his belt over the course of the next 3 weeks. And that's when we'll really be able to judge and evaluate, okay, how good is this kid really? But just finish the race. That's my goal for him this week. I think everyone expecting him to win in his debut is ridiculous. Look, the kid is 17. Um, he just has he even graduated high school? I don't even think he has. He's still got another month left to go until he graduates high school. So calm down. Let's pump the brakes on the expectations for him. Everyone calling, even his dad, calling him the next big, the greatest ASCA driver of all time. I think that's ridiculous, but I think his dad is doing his best to drum up publicity for his son, and I can respect that. But let's pump the brakes on that. So very interested to see how his debut goes, though, because a lot of people will have their eyes on him. A lot of team owners will have their eyes on him, and he's got a target on his back because he's got a lot to prove with all this hype. So that's enough about the 12th annual TreatMyPC.com 150. Gotta give my predictions at the end, so stay tuned for that because this race is really a toss-up as to who's gonna win it. So, but that's enough of that. Let's preview the 14th annual Windows 300. How about it? So there are so many storylines going into this race, man. So many. And not even looking at the championship battle because it isn't really much of a battle at this point. Diego Urquidy has run away with it, but we're only 7 races into the season. We still have this is the halfway mark, so we still have a lot of time for that to change. But Diego's kind of run away with it. He's been red hot as of late, and coincidentally, he also has the record for the most 300 wins with 3. The only driver to score 300 victories. Um, The only other driver to win multiple 300s, mind you, is Caleb Henderson Jr. with 2. But for this race, not even paying attention to the title fight and Diego Ortiz' massive points lead and his opportunity to chase 4. Let's talk about the record 28 cars entered. Let's talk about the big names included in this race, like the reigning Craftsman Series champion, the reigning Smithfield Cup Series champion, the reigning Chick-fil-A Cup Series champion, and a 2-time Circle K Cup Series champion that many would call the GOAT of the NDRL. Many would call the reigning Smithfield Cup Series champion the GOAT of the ADRS. I mean, there are, and many would call Colin Ward the GOAT of the Craftsman Series. So the competition level for this race is going to be absolutely insane, just bonkers. Um, 28 cars entered for an ASCA race is something that I thought I would never see, especially once we reached, I believe it was 26. We had 26 for this race in 2020. I never thought we'd see any more than that in an ASCA event, but here we are with 28 cars entered, man. 28 cars on this 1.5 mile track. I have no idea what to expect out of that this record field. Let's also talk about Tommy Woods, another guy with the famous last name. He's going to be making his Cup Series debut with Flores Motorsports in a second entry for them, the number 96. Really interested to see how that goes. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he doesn't deserve this ride." Look, I agree with that sentiment, but at least give the kid a chance now. Come on. Obviously the track record would say that giving him a cup ride at this stage of his career is a horrible idea with how he's performed this season. But yeah, he's having a down year, but he's had good seasons in the past. I look at 2020, I would look at 2022 prior to him breaking his leg and the tweet at mypc.com 150. Like, let's give the kid a chance here, okay? And speaking of that, I think Woods and Ward, for that matter, will have the upper hand on the rest of the field in the Craftsman race since they can run all of the practice sessions this weekend while pretty much everyone else is fun running, either Craftsman or Cup. But we'll get back into it when it comes to the prediction for the TreatMyPC.com 150. But 28 cars entered, all these big names in the show this year. The most competitive field we've seen for one race in ASCA history. Arguably the most competitive field we've seen for one race in ADRA history. Like barring, of course, the ADRA All-Star race. Like it's insane the amount of talent that's going to be on the track at one time on Sunday night. And then, you'll also consider some of the other storylines, such as Randall Woods, 0 for 13 in this race so far. Will the 14th time be the charm? You get the feeling that he's starting to run out of time, to score one of these things. He is 36 years old. He's kind of seemed like he's taken a step back this year. He doesn't have a top 5 finish on the campaign so far, which is shocking in itself. We're 7 races into the season, no top 5 finishes, especially with 2 road races on the calendar in the first 7 races and no top 5s in either of those. That's shocking. That really is shocking for Woods. And he's really hit or miss in this race. Like some years he's on it. We've obviously seen, like 2021, he was on it. He had the car to beat, but he didn't have the engine to beat because it blew up with 31 laps to go. And then last year he was completely off. I think he finished 13th, 2 laps down or something insane like that. Like, it's so topsy turvy with how this race is going to go for him. So I really, I'll give him a shot, but that team needs speed, and they have not had speed all season. The most speed they have had was in the All Star race last Saturday night, and they couldn't capitalize on it thanks to a mistake in the pits. So even with the invert, they still finished only third. So I don't know what to expect out of Woods, but I don't think he's gonna win. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think he's gonna win. But looking at other drivers that have not won a Windows 300, Todd Kidd, he's what 0 for 9 in this race. He was rather non-existent in the All-Star race. I think he finished like seventh. That's basically where he ran most of the night. Was a non-factor pretty much the whole race. We didn't talk about him like at all. Um, Chris Barrymore. He was up front for a bit at the end of stage two, but obviously the invert pretty much cucked him out of a victory. Will he have a shot? I think he always has a shot at his home track, especially with the way that he runs the top here. But, it depends. He can run the top and get a solid top five finish, but can he run the top well enough to get the lead? I don't know. I don't know. And then the car to beat. Who is going to be the car to beat? We've talked about this like 5 of the last 6 years. The driver that has won the All-Star race has led the most laps in the Windows 300. The only driver that hasn't was Chris Barrymore last season. And Laquon Scransen, I don't think he's going to be any exception to that rule. Even in 2023, last year, he led 40 something laps in the Windows 300 before he lost lead the pits and his race went downhill and he spent the rest of the night behind bars because of what incident with Barrymore. But I think Scranton clearly they hit on something in the All-Star race. They found something that worked because in stage one, he just obliterated the field and he was pretty much untouchable, once Healy and Park took themselves out of the race. So it man, that's why I'm not gonna get there. We're gonna save that for the final predictions. If you haven't read the Windows 300 preview article yet, you don't know who I'm gonna predict for the Windows 300. But I certainly do think that this is if a part-time driver is gonna win an Ajax Cup race, this is the weekend to do it. With this kind of a field, like this is their best chance of all. So, man, I think the jury's out. Anyone in this field, well, not anyone, obviously, but there are so many different drivers I think you can list off that have an opportunity to win this race. Like you can list off Scransen, Woods, Orchini, Moore, Price the Third, Paulson. I threw Colin Ward in there. I threw Todd Kidd in there. Shane Park, Bryn Renner, Greg Healy. Um, there's probably Nick Orchidi, who knows? Maybe even Carson Schmidt. He's run pretty well here in the past. Cameron Atwood, Chris Barrymore. That's 15 names I just listed off right there on the top of my head that have an opportunity to go to victory lane on Sunday night. 15 of the 28 names. And there's a couple that I'm probably forgetting as well that you could throw in there. Like I didn't mention Ross Jackson. I didn't mention Brian Dixon. A couple guys that have had down seasons. I could easily see them going to victory lane, if they have the car to do it. So it is so tough. Jared Ayers, Norm Lester, throw them in that boat as well. It is incredibly tough to predict. Brain Bennett, another name, forgot. So what is that? 20 of the 28 names that I listed off that could go win. It's insane. It like so many different drivers have an opportunity to win this race. I don't think I've ever said that before. And a lot of it does depend on the car, but I think a lot of it's going to show like the field's so going to be so tight that it's going to depend on obviously driver talent to make the most of difference. So I think that the part-time driver is going to have a really good shot to be up in the mix with the big boys throughout the night. But that's enough of that. Let's get to the final predictions, ladies and gentlemen. So the final predictions, guys. Here's the deal. For the Craftsman race, I'm gonna be boring here, but when has boring proved me wrong? Especially when it comes to picking Colin Ward to win something. More often than not, he comes through. And he won this race last season. He's won three of the first six races this season. He leads the point standings. He's the defending champion. He's got six career Craftsman Series victories. Why would I not pick Colin Ward to win this race? Seriously, why would I not pick him to win this race? All signs point to the number nine. Even if Tony Delval does light the world on fire in his debut, he's not gonna have what it takes to, I would say, hold off the big boys his first career start. You know, like even Darty didn't win in his first career start, so I can't put that on Delval to do it. Maybe Darty will have an opportunity if he can do a better job saving his tires this year, but yeah, I just don't know. You know, he's another guy that I have a hard time trusting. I think he's gonna win some races over the course of the next couple weeks, but it won't be this one. He hasn't been in a position to win a race this big before, like Colin Ward has. He's been there, done that so many times. I think he gets 4 wins in the opening 7 races of the season. Give me Colin Ward to win. Um, I know it's a super boring pick, but screw it. When has a boring pick let me down so far this season? Come on now. Then for the Cup Series, I already put this in my Windows 200 preview article, but Laquon Scransen. The stats back it up, man. The stats back it up. They back up the All-Star race winner having the car to beat in the Windows 300 outside of Chris Barrymore last season. And to be honest, Barrymore stole that race from Cameron Atwood. Let's be real, Atwood probably should have won that race, but Barrymore just did an incredible job ripping the fence and ripped that $1 million bag right out of Atwood's hands. So um, I I got my money on Scransen, man. I really do. And you know, he's only 21. It is tough to bet on a kid that young to win a race this big. But Scransen, as the kids would say, he is built different. He is built different. And I just like right now he is on a roll. Even after all the crap he got himself into the past week, didn't even matter. Came out qualified third and won the All Star race. So now, assuming that he doesn't get himself involved in any more legal drama throughout the course of this week, which I don't know why he would, um, Scranson, I think, is gonna be the guy to beat on Sunday night. And it would be crazy if a 21-year-old kid goes out and beats all these big boys from all these other series. It would just be further adding to the legend of Laquon Scranson at this point. But man, like he is special. He is truly a special talent, and I think he's got what it takes. As long as he's got the car underneath him, he's had a lot of success at Computer Mode Speedway over the years. Also, forgot to point that out. Won his first Craftsman race here. Won his first Cup race here. Won the All Star race here. Why not have him winning the Windows 300? So that's my predictions for this weekend. I got Colin Ward and Laquan Scranton. I know, two super boring picks. Boo hoo, get over it. That's who I got. Um, Might as well go with the odds on favorites, right? They aren't odds on favorites for a reason. They're odds on favorites for a reason, I should say. Like they got a really good shot to win this thing, and I think both of them do. So that's it for this week's ASCA Weekly Podcast. Man, I am so hyped for the races this weekend. As I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. You know, the two of you that listen this way deep into the podcast every week. I appreciate all of you for your support. Don't forget, get yourself a rowdy energy and buy yourself some diecast at Circle B Diecast on your way out. Um, because you can get free shipping on any orders, $20 or more in the US. So why not take advantage of that bargain? I don't know why you wouldn't. So that's pretty much it. This is Charles Fallon signing out, and I am more than thrilled to be going over all of the action from the Windows 300 in a couple weeks' time. But before we sign out, I almost forgot about this. We got to talk about Carson Schmidt signing an extension with Orchidee Bros Racing. 1 year extension. He returns to the organization in 2025. Good deal for them. Both sides, I think this is a perfect agreement. Glad to see Schmidt getting another chance in that number 12 to prove himself because he's starting to grow into his own. So hopefully that gives him some confidence to, give him a shot for the 300 on Sunday night. But that's it for this edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. This is Charles Fallon now officially signing out. We will see you to recap all the action on the 150 and the 300 next Tuesday.